You step up to the first tee, you make the same swing you've made for 40 years, and the ball just doesn't go where it used to. You watch it land 30, 40 yards shorter than the drives you remember, and somebody younger or somebody your own age steps up right after you and flushes one past your ball like it's nothing. Here's what I found out, and it stopped me cold. The distance you think you lost to age isn't gone. Most of it was never about age at all. It was about a handful of small, almost forgotten adjustments that older golfers used to know by heart before the equipment stores taught us all to reach for our wallets instead. I'm 63. I lost those adjustments myself for the better part of 30 years, and I paid for it in strokes and in pride. It took me getting humbled on my home course to go digging for the answers. By the end of this, I'm going to hand you 5 of them. And the last one comes straight out of a study from 2004 that measured the swings of the best players alive and found one number they all shared. It's the simplest of the 5, and it's the one that gave me back the most yards. You can test every single one of these this weekend on the course you already play, with the clubs already in your bag. No new driver required. Let me take you back to the moment this started for me. It was a Tuesday morning, early, dew still on the grass, on the 6th hole at my local Muni course, a par 4 I'd played maybe 1,000 times. For most of my life, I hit driver and a little wedge into that green. That morning, I hit my best drive, walked up, and I had a 7-iron left. 7-iron. Same hole, same me, just older. And playing behind me was a fellow named Walt, 71 years old, thin as a rake, and he put his tee shot 15 yards past mine without looking like he tried at all. I wanted to be angry. Instead, I got curious, because Walt wasn't stronger than me. He wasn't younger. So what did he know that I didn't? That question sent me down a road I never expected. I read old instruction books. I dug through swing research most people never see. And I found out that almost everything I believed about losing distance as I got older was, frankly, wrong. Not a lie exactly, just a story that a lot of people had good reason to let me keep believing. Let me start with the first thing Walt did that I didn't, because it's the one that shocked me most. Walt teed his ball up high. I mean high. Half the golf ball was sitting above the top edge of his driver. For years I'd teed mine low, because somewhere along the line I picked up the idea that a low tee meant more control, and I gave up something huge without ever knowing it. Here's the thing about a driver that nobody explained to me until I went looking. A driver is the one club in your bag you are supposed to hit on the way up, not on the way down. Every iron, you hit down on the ball and take a divot, but the driver sits on a tee for a reason. When you catch that ball slightly on the upswing, you launch it higher and you put less spin on it, and those two things together are what make a golf ball carry. The launch monitor people have a name for this. They call it angle of attack. And the research out of the club fitting world is blunt about it. For a golfer with an average swing speed, moving from hitting down on the driver to hitting up on it can add somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 40 yards a carry, not from swinging harder, from simply catching the ball at a better point in the arc. Now here's why this matters more for us, not less, as we get older. When you swing slower, you need the ball to launch higher to stay in the air long enough to carry. A young man swinging out of his shoes can hit down on it and still overpower the physics. We can't. So the slower our swing gets, the more we need that upward strike, and the more we need that ball teed high. The exact thing I'd abandoned was the exact thing I needed most. So I started teeing it high, so high it felt ridiculous, and I made one small change to go with it. I set up with the ball played forward, off the inside of my lead heel, and I put a touch more weight on my back foot at address. Nothing dramatic, just enough that my body was already in a position to sweep up through the ball instead of chopping down on it. The first time I did it, the ball came off different, higher, softer, and it just kept going. That alone got me a good chunk of the way back to Walt. But teeing it high only works if you're catching the ball on the center of the face, and that led me straight into the second secret, which is even more counterintuitive than the first. I always thought a lower lofted driver meant more distance. 9 degrees, 10 degrees, the numbers the long hitters used. More loft was for beginners and for people who couldn't hit it, or so I'd absorbed over the years without ever questioning it. So I played the lowest loft I could handle, and I was leaving yards all over the course. Here's the truth that the fitting data lays out plain. The slower your swing speed, the more loft you need to maximize your distance. It's not close, either. For a golfer swinging the driver around 85 miles an hour, which is right in the range for a lot of us past 60, the optimal driver loft to carry the ball the farthest sits well above 10 degrees, often 12, 13, even higher. The exact loft that gets sold as the senior club, the one my ego told me to avoid, is the one that would have flown my ball farther. Why? Same reason as the tee. A slower swing needs a higher launch and lower spin to carry, and loft is how you buy that when your speed can't buy it for you. A strong young player with a 9-degree driver launches the ball at the right angle because his speed forces it up. Take that same 9-degree head and hand it to me and I launch it too low, it falls out of the sky early, and I lose 30 yards and blame my age. Now here's the part that got under my skin. I owned a driver with adjustable loft for 6 years and never touched the setting. Never knew what it did. That little wrench that came in the box, I threw it in a drawer. Most modern drivers let you add 2 or 3 degrees of loft in about 30 seconds with that wrench, and I'd been carrying the answer in my junk drawer the whole time. And this is where I started to get suspicious. Because think about it. If more loft helps most of us hit it farther, and adjusting loft is free and takes half a minute, why did I go 3 decades believing the opposite? Why did every conversation at the golf shop steer me toward buying a whole new club instead of turning the wrench on the one I already owned? That's when I understood something about who benefits from us not knowing this. There's no money in telling a man to adjust the driver he bought 4 years ago. There's a lot of money in telling him his distance is gone and the only cure is the new model, the one with the name that sounds like a rocket, priced at $500-600. The whole business is built on selling us speed we could partly find for free. Distance became a product, and you're just getting old became the sales pitch that made us reach for the credit card instead of the wrench. I'm not saying every new club is a scam. Some genuinely help. But I am telling you that I fixed more of my problem with a 30-second loft adjustment than I ever did with $1,000 of new equipment, and nobody at the counter ever once mentioned it to me. Once I saw that pattern, I started noticing it everywhere in this game. Which brings me to the third secret, and this one has nothing to do with your equipment at all. This one is about your feet, and it's the one Walt was quietly doing that I couldn't even see at first. For most of my golfing life, I thought power came from my arms and my shoulders. Swing harder with the top half, hit it farther. Seems obvious. It's also almost completely backward. And the research on this is some of the most interesting I've found in the whole search. Scientists who study the golf swing use force plates, which are basically sensitive scales built into the ground that measure how hard a golfer pushes against the earth during the swing. What they found is that the longest hitters, and this holds for skilled older players too, don't just rotate. They push down into the ground with their legs on the downswing, hard, and the ground pushes back. They call it ground reaction force. That push off the ground is a huge, and I mean huge, source of clubhead speed. Studies have found that the best drivers of the ball can push against the ground with a force well over 1.5 times their own body weight during the downswing. Think about that. A big part of your power isn't in your muscles at all. It's in how you use the planet under your feet. And here's the beautiful part for us older players. Using the ground doesn't require youth or flexibility or strength. It requires timing and a slightly wider stance. That's it. It's technique, not fitness. When I watched slow motion video of good senior players after I learned this, I finally saw what Walt was doing. As he started down, his lead heel pressed hard into the turf. His legs straightened and drove up through impact, almost like he was jumping just a little. That subtle little push was manufacturing speed that my lazy all-arm swing never touched. So here's what I did, and it's dead simple. I widened my stance at the driver just a bit, so my feet were a touch outside my shoulders, giving me a stable base to push against. And I started thinking about one feeling on the downswing. Press the ground away, feel my legs drive down and up as I turn through. Not jump off the ground, just feel that pressure through my feet like I'm pushing the earth down and back. The clubhead speed I got from that, for free, from a muscle I'd been ignoring my whole life, was more than any new shaft ever gave me. Now I know exactly what some of you are thinking right about now. You're thinking this all sounds fine for a fellow who has the time to study video and practice on a range twice a week, but you just want to show up on Saturday and play, and you're not about to rebuild your golf swing at your age. I hear you. I thought the very same thing. So this next part is for you specifically, the one who figures this is more trouble than it's worth. Here's the truth. You don't need to rebuild anything. You need 3 tiny things you can do this Saturday before you even reach the first tee, and every one of them is free. First, warm up your body for real, even 5 minutes. Here's a number that stunned me. Research on golfers has shown that players who go through a short warm-up routine before playing gain measurable club head speed and distance compared to walking straight from the car to the first tee cold. We lose flexibility as we age, that part is true, but a cold muscle at 63 is dramatically slower than a warm one, and the gap is bigger for us than it is for the young. 10 easy practice swings, some gentle turns, a few stretches for your shoulders and hips. That alone can be worth yards you're currently throwing away in the parking lot. Second, tee it high, like I told you, and play it forward. You can do that on the very first hole with no practice at all. It costs you nothing but the willingness to feel a little silly. Third, and this is the one nobody does, take that wrench that came with your driver and add loft to it before your round. If your driver adjusts, turn it up. If you don't know how, it takes 2 minutes to look up for your exact model. That's the whole homework. A warm body, a high tee, and a turn of a wrench. Do just those 3 this weekend, and I'd bet money you pick up distance before you've read a single word about the technique stuff. And that right there, those 3 free things, is the whole reason I keep making these. You just got them handed to you, no charge, and they work with what's already in your garage. But a video only holds so much, and there's a great deal more that I couldn't fit here without keeping you all afternoon. That's why I sat down and wrote the books, 3 of them, where I lay out the full setup checks, the ball position work, the exact words to use in a pro shop so nobody sells you a driver you don't need, and how to stop the thin wedges and the 4-footers that quietly eat your card around the green. Same promise as this video, nothing to buy, nothing to order, just the driver and the wedges you already own. If that's what you want, scan the QR code right there on your screen, or use the link in the description or the pinned comment for the books. Then come straight back, because I'm not done with you yet. Because here's the thing I wish somebody had told me at 50, and it's the reason none of this was ever really about candles on a cake. Because here's the thing I wish somebody had told me at 50. The reason most of us keep losing yards isn't that we've stopped being able to swing well. It's that we've quietly stacked up a dozen tiny losses, a low tee here, a cold muscle there, a wrong loft, a lazy lower body, and each one felt too small to matter, so we blamed the one thing we couldn't fix, age. And age got the blame for a whole pile of things that were never its fault. That realization leads me right into the 4th secret, and this is where the equipment story gets a little darker, so stay with me. I told you I chased new drivers for years. What I didn't tell you is that the biggest mistake I made wasn't the club head at all. It was the shaft, the long tube connecting the grip to the head, and specifically 2 things about it that were quietly costing me distance every single swing. The first is flex. Shafts come in stiffness ratings, and for most of my life I played a stiff shaft because, again, ego. Stiff was for good players. Regular flex, or heaven forbid senior flex, that was for people who'd given up. So I played a shaft that was too stiff for my swing speed for years, and a shaft that's too stiff for you literally does not load and release properly, which means you lose the whip, the snap that flings the club head through the ball. I was fighting my own equipment on every drive. The second thing is weight, and this one is even less understood. Most golfers, especially as we age, are swinging a shaft that's heavier than it needs to be. A lighter shaft, within reason, lets you swing the club head faster with the same effort, and club head speed is the single biggest factor in how far the ball goes. Just a few grams lighter can show up as real yards. And here's the kicker. A lighter, more flexible shaft that actually matches a slower swing isn't more expensive than a heavy stiff one. It's the same price. The problem was never cost. The problem was that I was choosing my equipment based on what made me feel like a stronger golfer instead of what actually made me a longer one. When I finally swallowed my pride and put a shaft in my driver that matched the swing I actually have at 63, instead of the swing I had at 33, the ball jumped. Same swing, same effort. The equipment had been quietly breaking me the whole time, and I'd been thanking it for the privilege. And this is where the whole picture came together for me and made me a little bit angry, honestly. Because none of these 5 things are secret in the sense of being hidden in a vault somewhere. They're secret because the way this game gets sold to us actively steers us away from every one of them. We're taught to want the stiff shaft, the low loft head, the manly low tee, the swing out of your shoes power. We're taught that distance is something you buy in a new club, not something you already own and are leaving on the table. Every one of my 5 secrets is free, or nearly free. And every one of them was buried under a marketing story designed to sell me something instead. But the fifth one is the one I saved for last, because it's the simplest of them all, it costs absolutely nothing, and it gave me back more yards than anything else on this list. And it comes from research that most golfers have never heard of. Back in 2004, a man named John Novosel published the results of something he'd been obsessing over. He'd taken high-speed footage of the greatest golfers in the world, and he measured, frame by frame, how long their swings took. Not how they looked, how long they lasted, in fractions of a second. The backswing, from the start to the top, and the downswing, from the top to the moment of impact. What he found is one of those things that sounds too clean to be real, but the frames don't lie. Across the best players, wildly different body types, wildly different looking swings, there was one number they nearly all shared. The ratio of their backswing time to their downswing time was 3-to-1. Their backswing took about 3 times as long as their downswing. He called it tour tempo, and that 3-to-1 ratio held up across player after player after player. Now here's why this is the secret that matters most for us, and why I'm ending on it. When we get older and we start losing distance, what's the very first thing we do? We try to swing harder. And swinging harder almost always means we rush the top of the swing. We snatch the club back fast, and then we heave at the ball from the top, and we destroy our tempo completely. We turn a smooth 3-to-1 into a frantic 1-to-1, and a rush swing is a slow swing, because the club head never has a chance to build and release its speed in the right order. All that effort, and the ball goes shorter. I did this for years. The harder I tried, the shorter I hit it, and I could never understand why. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple. You make your backswing slow and full, and you let the downswing be the fast part in about that 3-to-1 rhythm. The way I learned to feel it was by counting. A slow, smooth count going back, and a quick strike coming down on a beat. Some folks use a little tone or a metronome. I just used a rhythm in my head, 1 and 2 on the way back, and down on the strike, so the back part took about 3 beats to the 1 beat of the through swing. The first time I got the tempo right, it didn't feel powerful at all. That's the trap. It felt easy, almost lazy, and the ball took off like I'd been cheating my whole life. Because for the slower swinging golfer, tempo isn't the icing. It's the cake. A smooth swing at your real speed will outdrive a violent swing every day of the week, and it'll do it while finding the fairway instead of the trees. Think about what Walt was really doing that morning on the 6th hole. He wasn't stronger than me. His swing looked almost slow, but it was slow in the backswing and quick through the ball, in that perfect ratio, off a high tee, with his feet pushing the ground, with a club that fit the golfer he actually was. Every one of my 5 secrets, in one 71-year-old body, while I stood there swinging as hard as I could with the wrong loft and the wrong shaft and a low tee, and losing. So let me leave you with what all this really means, because it's bigger than golf. Everything they told you that you lost to age, you should question. All of it. Some of it you did lose, sure, but a whole lot of it was never age at all. It was a slow pile of small surrenders, and a story that made you stop looking for the answers, because the answers didn't cost enough for anyone to bother selling them to you. You're the kind of person who's always suspected that the simplest, cheapest fix was being kept quiet because there was no profit in it. On this, your instinct was dead right. The yards were never gone. They were just sitting under a high tee, a turned wrench, a pair of feet, a lighter shaft, and a 3-to-1 heartbeat, waiting for somebody to tell you the truth. Now I want to hear from you. Which one are you going to try first this weekend? The high tee or the tempo count? Tell me in the comments, and if you've got a Walt at your own course, some quiet, older player who outdrives everybody without breaking a sweat, Tell me about him, because I'd bet he's doing every one of these without ever calling it a secret. If you believe the best answers in life are usually the ones nobody's making money off of, come along with the rest of us who are digging these forgotten methods back up one at a time. Because next I'm going to show you the one setup change that lets an older golfer stop three-putting almost overnight, and it's got nothing to do with your putter and everything to do with something you're doing with your eyes before you ever swing. You won't want to miss that one. Before you go, let me tell you where this goes next. Inside the old ways circle, I pick up right where we stopped, walking you through all 5 distance adjustments, dialed to your own swing. Ask me your own question, and a real person answers, not a machine. You won't be alone. Old ways folks like you are already in there with me. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel anytime. Come join me. Now that you've found more distance, let's make those long irons finally feel easy again. I'll show you 5 forgotten tricks that make solid contact simple, so your shots fly straight and true. It's starting right here.